Hello and welcome. I am Sylvan Lane, a finance and economic policy reporter at The Hill. Thank you for joining us today for our forum on a topic that is on everyone's minds these days, advancing America's economy. I'd like to thank our sponsor, the American Bankers Association, for supporting today's event. America is experiencing low unemployment and strong consumer spending, yet high inflation and soaring gas prices are creating anxiety. And the pandemic has challenged the economy with supply chain bottlenecks and labor shortages. As the Federal Reserve takes steps to slow inflation, what can consumers and manufacturers expect to see over the next year? Is the threat of recession real? We've got an exciting lineup of speakers joining me to answer these questions and more. But before we begin, a few housekeeping notes. You can tweet us at @TheHillEvents using the hashtag #TheHillEconomy. We are broadcasting live, and we will be taking your questions throughout the program. Now, we begin our program with a message from our sponsor, the American Bankers Association. Please welcome Rob Nichols, President and CEO of the American Bankers Association. Rob, over to you.
Thanks, Sylvan. We're pleased to be partnering with you and The Hill on this event and excited to see the great lineup of speakers participating today. There's a lot for all of us to process right now. The unimaginable tragedy in Texas and all of the unanswered questions. At the top of that list, what could possibly drive an 18-year-old to enter an elementary school and take the lives of so many children? As a parent, I can't even imagine what those families are going through. They will need far more than thoughts and prayers. We're still coming to grips with the other recent mass shootings in Buffalo and Southern California. It's happening so often, it's getting hard to keep track, which is a really sad statement. We're still tracking the ongoing pandemic, which has claimed more than 1 million lives. And we're witnessing Russia's unprovoked and unjustified invasion of Ukraine and the incredible resolve of the Ukrainian people in response. On top of all of that going on, we can now see economic storm clouds looming on the horizon, the focus of our important conversation this afternoon. It's a challenging moment for the U.S. economy, with inflation running at its highest level in a generation, hitting every American in their wallet. We continue to suffer supply disruptions due to the lingering effects of the pandemic and the Russian aggression in Ukraine. The Fed is moving to slow demand by raising interest rates and pledging to keep hiking until inflation is under control. Still, there are questions about whether the Fed remains behind the curve. Some wonder if Jay Powell and his colleagues are pushing the country towards recession or perhaps poised to deliver an unprecedented soft landing. The recent market volatility tells us not everyone is certain of the outcome. Amid the many questions surrounding the economy right now is one certainty. America's banks remain healthy and ready to continue providing much needed support to the communities they serve, as well as the broader economy. But don't just take my word for it. Instead, listen to the words of the acting FDIC chairman, Marty Gruenberg, who said just yesterday that the banking industry remains strong at this time, with capital and liquidity both solid. The Fed's latest financial stability report released earlier this month also highlighted the resiliency of the banking sector. Among other things, it concluded, banks have maintained risk-based capital ratios well above regulatory minimums, credit quality remains robust, and funding risks at domestic banks remain low after the flood of deposits they received during the pandemic. We also know that bank reserves remain above pre-pandemic levels, another sign of the prudent planning and risk management underway as our industry prepares for potential headwinds. Bottom line, America's banks have weathered the unprecedented storm posed by the pandemic well, and they remain well positioned to navigate the uncertain road ahead right alongside their clients and customers. The Fed report also made clear that the biggest threat to the financial system right now may be the growing number of non-banks looking to offer banking services, but without having to meet bank-like rules. We have some concerns about that. Hopefully today's speakers get the chance to talk about whether fintechs, crypto companies, and other new financial players should have to meet the same rigorous requirements as banks if we want to ensure that consumers and the financial system are protected. Innovation is critical to our competitiveness, but markets are also built and sustained on trust. As Chair Powell has pointed out, we should be guided by the golden rule of financial services. The same activity should be subject to the same regulation. There's another big reason banks are well positioned for the future, no matter what it brings: the 2 million dedicated women and men who work in our industry. From tellers to loan officers to cyber experts and everyone in between, those are the people making sure the world's most competitive and resilient financial system continues to function seamlessly day in and day out. Finally, I wanted to take a moment to reflect on the significance of this particular day for our country. It was 2 years ago today that George Floyd was murdered in Minneapolis. Since that time, our nation has faced hard questions about persistent racial inequities and what we as a country can do to build a more just and inclusive future. The unabashed racism on display in Buffalo just 2 weeks ago is a stark reminder that we have a long road ahead and a shared responsibility to face these challenges head on. That includes the banking industry, where we remain committed to improving diversity, equity, inclusion at every level, not just because it's the right thing to do, but because we know it's good for business and good for the country. Our members believe that a more inclusive economy that opens doors of opportunity for everyone is a stronger economy. As we kick off today's conversation, I hope that's something we can all agree on. Thanks again to the Hill for the opportunity to partner on today's event. Thanks to all our speakers, and thanks to each of you for joining us. I'll turn things back over to Sylvan.
Thank you to Rob Nichols, President and CEO of the American Bankers Association.